on my attention. My countrymen, they love their fiction. Words upon now, it's made with good intentions.
Welcome to 1 of 200, the Independent Politics and Media podcast. We've got people from England and people from the US and people from New Zealand in the podcast today, the full colonial sweep, to talk about the electoral situation in both the US and the UK. I'm honor bound to intro Branko first as a co-founder. How you doing, Branko?
Hey, good. How are you?
I live. Also joined by John as our UK correspondent.
It's bad, everyone. It's still bad.
And welcome back again, Ollie, for your objective analysis.
Yeah, always happy to be here.
So let's kick straight into what's happening in the US. Branko, you're over there. Last week we talked about this a little bit, but it hadn't quite reached the full rumblings that have occurred throughout the week with Joe Biden. Bad debate performance, but we all have those. And then this immense panic among Democratic operatives and establishment media.
Yeah, I mean, people have asked me, why is it that all of a sudden everyone, just suddenly went into this massive panic, as you say. And to me, it's clear that's not because of the fact that people just saw Biden had a bad debate and they got worried that he's not going to be able to perform again. It's because this is something that everyone has known has been an issue basically since he ran in 2019. People commented on it openly at the time, like politicians, people who were running against him, media figures. And then when he became the nominee, or actually more accurately, when it was basically coming down to him and Sanders, this became taboo to bring up. You were not allowed to say that, Biden's answers didn't make sense, or that there were clips out there where he just forgot what he was talking about, couldn't remember people's names, so on and so forth.
He suddenly had a stutter.
Yeah, well, because he had a stutter as a kid, for sure. I mean, that is true. But if you've looked at any clip of him speaking in the many decades that he was in public life as an adult, he didn't have one.
His awfulness was incredibly eloquent.
Yeah, I mean, no, he was actually a very good speaker as a politician. I mean, the things he said were horrible, but the actual form and the quality of his speaking was quite good. And yeah, they came up with this strategy for fitting that off that they fed to The Atlantic, where they said, well, actually what's happening is that he has a stutter, and so therefore whenever you see him say something that doesn't make any sense, or any time that he might look bad in a verbal situation, it's just because he is having to overcome this thing that suddenly has cropped up again. Funnily enough, in the wake of this latest debacle, the guy who wrote that original piece in The Atlantic, who said, this is all a stutter, basically repealed that piece. He revoked Biden's privileges for using that excuse and said, this isn't just a stutter. The stutter does not cause you to be completely incoherent and not be able to formulate a sentence. So yeah, I mean, this is just a thing that people have been commenting on, usually in private for a long time. Newspapers have danced around it for a while, and I think once he went up on that debate stage and did as terribly as he did, and when it was clear that this could no longer be denied, I think it kind of opened the floodgates for everyone to openly say what they had been holding in for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was a Cuban sound weapon.
Well, that too. We can't
rule that out.
Yeah, exactly.
He might have Havana syndrome. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. So it's Havana syndrome. It's a cold. He was on a plane 12 days before. He overprepared.
Another one I saw that they were suggesting was that CNN was doctoring the footage live. So they were clipping pieces together and muting his mic intermittently and just doing all these weird things to make it seem like he was doing a bad job, but actually he was doing a good job.
And this is not just like from people on the outside. This is from like
popular like liberal commentators now have become basically QAnon theorists, but for Biden.
It's wild.
It's good. I mean, it's good. We needed the balance. We needed to have some absolute lunatics on the left who are just deranged
But what does this mean for the nomination, Branko? There was a little bit of a whirlwind of like, oh, he's going to speak to his family who hate him apparently and want him to run no matter what. But he might withdraw. A bunch of names started getting thrown around to say, oh, these could be some possible candidates to step in. Obviously, Kamala Harris is at the forefront of those at the moment. Like, as far as we can tell, they're going to try and run Biden through.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, basically, the Democratic Party is in a sort of, I don't even know if you can call it a civil war. It's is it really a civil war when it's like most of the elected officials versus like a tiny cabal of advisors and random family members? So whatever you would describe that as, that's sort of what's going on. I mean, based on reports, most of the Democratic donors, activists, elected officials in the House in particular, they want to get rid of Biden because number one, it wasn't just the debate. The debate was bad enough, but I think it was too the response to it afterwards, where they basically just put him in a closet for a week. He didn't talk to anyone in the party. No one knew what was going on. The only thing they heard was just random press releases that they sent out where they basically said everyone was pissing their pants and insulted them and dismissed all their concerns. And so that in some ways that was more damaging than the actual debate, at least for his support within the party. But yeah, I mean, now you have this, from all reports, there's this building behind the scenes effort to get rid of him because people no longer think that he's going to be able to do this. The polling's going in the wrong direction. People are worried that he's going to drag down ballot candidates. But the problem is that it turns out that the Democratic Party and the entire country of the United States is not actually governed by the people that are elected to govern it. It is, in fact, apparently controlled by Biden's family and like the various collection of hangers-on that he has amassed over his 30 to 40 years in politics, who do not want to relinquish their access to power. And then, I mean, we're finding out now as well that like there's all this other information that has been suppressed until now that people for a long time have not actually been sure if Biden is really the one who is in charge of decisions in the White House, that the people around him are keeping important, pertinent information from him, maybe not even giving it to him. It's very unclear. I mean, this is all just dribbling out as the days go on. So we'll probably know, by the time this gets published, we'll know way more. But this is the trouble. I think that the wider Democratic Party does want him out. But the difficulty is, how do you convince this obviously unwell and deeply stubborn man to, number one, do this? And then number two, how do you convince his family to prod him into doing this when, one, they don't want to give up some of their privileges, being around the White House and so close to power. And number two, I mean, in the case of his son, literally dependent on his dad staying in office so he can get pardoned for the crimes that he is right now, as we speak, being convicted of.
Here's the trick then. Just run Hunter. If the family doesn't want to let go of power, just run Hunter.
Actually, I thought Joe said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter, though. Wasn't he trying to take the high road on that one?
He did say that, but I think if you're Hunter Biden,
holding out hope.
Exactly.
And so they just prop up this absolute corpse. It is interesting seeing the sort of the people who come out openly saying Biden needs to step down, but there's also quite obviously a lot of leaking happening behind the scenes. For some reason, I learned yesterday that Joe Biden doesn't wake up until 11 o'clock and has a nap in the middle of the day and then goes back to bed again at 10.
Just like the Europeans do. So I don't know. That's not a problem.
That's the schedule of a very old, very sick man.
Trump is going to have a field day with it. He's European, folks. He's European. Euro Joe Biden. He's drinking wine. He's got a mistress. He's riding around in one of those little fruity scooters.
Yeah, I mean, this was like known about before, but the latest thing that kind of blew up was that Biden functions best between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And then outside those hours, he gets unfocused and the chances of him malfunctioning get higher. And so, the obvious question is, number one, how do you run a country like that? But number two, I also like beyond that, the US at the moment is embroiled in two increasingly dangerous wars. One with, one in Israel or Gaza rather, where that threatens at any moment to erupt into a
Regional
regional
war.
catastrophe. Yeah. And then over in Eastern Europe, it's a war with the largest nuclear power in the entire world.
To be fair, they've kind of given up on that latter one.
Yeah, right. But I mean, in both those cases, if something hairy happens, I would invite people to look at what the time is what the time right now is in the United States, and then Google what the time is in either Israel or Ukraine. You'll notice that basically at the exact time that it's evening in one, it's morning or daytime in the other. So if the guy who is in charge of making snap decisions about life and death matters, to say the least, in both of these things, can't formulate a coherent thought or even give a succinct order to his underlings when it's past like 8 p.m., it's kind of a worrying thing.
So what are we expecting? Or at least what can we no, expect is the right word for the campaign heading into November?
I think it's only a matter of time before he's pushed out. Some people disagree with me on this, but I just it's becoming increasingly untenable. The only question is when and how, and how long it'll take.
Yeah, I've seen people saying maybe at the convention, but just like
That seems late.
Yeah, it's really late. I think the other question is he going to resign the presidency? I mean, if we're just stepping out of the kind of realm of politics, like he obviously should. It's plainly obvious that he cannot do the job. If he's too unfit to campaign, makes absolutely no sense to say, but he can still run the most powerful country in the world, do the hardest job in the world. So the question is he going to resign from the presidency and hand it over to Kamala Harris so that she kind of has, as we would do in New Zealand, the leader resigns, or the prime minister resigns, but the deputy gets a chance to prove themselves.
Yeah, pass the incumbency bonus.
Yeah, which it would be
Which is not a thing, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if it works. I don't know if you get that incumbency bump when you're the VP, and you're a VP that is famously sort of weird and unpopular.
It's funny because no one on the left liked Kamala Harris, obviously, when she ran, and I think since then she's just been a walking punchline. I mean, she really has been kind of a living, breathing episode of Veep.
That's the thing.
And
she has a sort of manic charm about her that I think is winning people over very slowly with the coconut tree thing and the fact that she often seems like she's on some kind of mood stabilizers that people find that a little bit relatable. Like it's like a more probably, I don't know, more better or worse version of the Dark Brandon thing, where people are sort of finding a sort of angle to not feel so gross about voting for these people. Yeah, she's a bit of a weird unit, that one. But
who is it?
No, it's true. I mean, the random off-putting laugh that is just thrown into completely inappropriate parts of sentences and like.
Oh, no, those are deep fakes. Those are deep fakes, Branko.
Yeah, just the kind of her inability to do simple interviews. I mean, there was a famous one I think in 2021 where she had just done this trip to Central America, and then they asked her, "Why did you go to the border?" And she gave this completely nonsensical answer, which she said, "We've been to the border." And the interviewer said, but you haven't. She goes, "Well, no, of course, but I haven't been to Europe either." It's like, wait, what? So, for a long time I thought, okay, maybe in the end Biden's actually more competent than Harris. But at this point,
more coherent.
Yeah, right. But honestly, seeing him perform that debate and in public appearances since, but then also just the amount of stories that have come out since then, where it's like he's forgetting the friends, the names of longtime friends, and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, at this point, you got to go with the kind of wacky lady over the guy whose brain is turning into dust.
And I think that maybe there's an opportunity for them to do a sort of shoulder tap and do it in a way where Kamala maybe just like avoids too many public appearances, because it does seem like the more people see of her, the more strange they find her. And so maybe I don't know. She steps up, and then they say, well, because she's learning a lot, so she can't do any interviews. She's got a lot to do. She's had to pick up. She's got so much work to do, so she can't interview right now. I don't know. Maybe.
But she still has to. She still have to campaign. You have
That's
to get
the
out there
thing.
and
Yeah. Unless
Yeah.
she can, I don't know, feel the shine of Joe Biden's camp. Look, yeah, I've made a suggestion. I won't repeat it because it could get me in trouble. But I'm just saying, if something bad happened to Joe Biden, something bad, then she could ride a little bit of a sympathy wave off the back of that.
I think there's optimism in the fact that a lot more people with her don't have any opinion about her because they don't know her as much. She hasn't been on TV as much. Sure, they also don't like her, but she has the possibility to make things better. With Biden, I don't know at this point that anything he can do is going to improve this. I mean, like the poll shortly after the debate. Yeah, he is. And I mean, it was like 72% of voters believe that he is not mentally fit to be in office. And what he did after that was just disappear for a week. And they're all, it's the most absurd thing in the world. The entire thing is hinging on him doing one 15-minute interview tonight as we record this, as if that will somehow erase everything that has happened in the last week. And I mean, that to me is just such delusional thinking. But that seems to be what they really believe. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to turn around. Whereas Harris at least has, if she is able to answer questions properly, seem more normal than Trump and Biden, she has the potential to at least like people who don't have any opinion about her or have no thoughts on her at the moment to be like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah,
she seems fine.
Also a real need for them to shift on some of these big issues, which have been driving Biden's polling down already, like Gaza. And that's the thing with the Democrats. I don't expect them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Gaza is also the fact that Biden's been running on nothing. He has an entire presidential agenda that never got passed. And you would think when he goes to speeches, he goes, let's finish the job. You would think that would be the job that needs to be finished, but he never mentions any of these policies. And their basic response to the fact that most of the public does not feel good about the economy and says openly that they're struggling to make ends meet is just to say, no, actually you're wrong. The economy is great, and you're just deluded by bias and media propaganda. So you would hope that if a Harris campaign took over, that they would actually try and meet voters where they are and say, hey, here's what we're going to do to deal with some of your concerns. Here's what we're going to do to make your lives better. But some of the stuff that's come out about like a potential Harris campaign in 2024 suggests that they are not going to do that. So there's still, even if they swap out the guy at the top for someone who's not severely unwell, that is not a guarantee that they will just beat Trump. So there's so much more to go in this whole fiasco.
It is a sort of a chilling choice of campaign slogan that they decided to start pivoting to "Let's finish the job," when the two sort of big things that people have been criticizing you for is economic freefall in your home country and a genocide in Palestine, and you're out and around going, yeah, let's finish the job, finish the job, and it's like,
let's find a solution.
Yeah, jeez, yeah. I mean, that's kind of I'm sure that's not necessarily how it reads to the American public, but it does seem like a horrible choice when that is what you're sort of most being sort of spotlighted for in the current media environment.
Well, talking of horrible choices, we've discussed how one Western democracy is on the ropes. John, as a Brit, as someone, I'm allowed to say it because I also hold citizenship in the UK.
Condolences to you both.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I know at least we found our people here. But yeah, pretty horrible choices for the UK public if they have a progressive bone in their body. But a set of choices that has been a monumental shift in at least the party makeup in the UK. Do you want to give us whatever you have prepared for what's occurred.
Okay, so the UK Labour Party won their first election since 2005. Yesterday by getting 412 seats compared to the Conservatives 121. Lib Dems picked up 71, SNP 9, Reform 5, Greens 4. It's a massive Labour majority. And yet, if you look at how it's being covered, especially by some of the Liberal commentariat, they are deeply worried. Even the Prime Minister has not been. This isn't the thing about the Keir Starmer project was that they wanted to do 1997 again. You know, it's essentially we want to cosplay Tony Blair in the 90s, but the result they've got is a similar majority in the Commons, but the underlying numbers and exactly how they got there is starkly different. There was a snap poll from Savanta today, which asked the public what was the biggest factor behind Labour's victory. 73% said we wanted the end of the Conservative government, and 21% said we wanted a Labour government. So, I mean, I did say there's a piece on the Guardian at the minute by Jonathan Friedland, which has said Keir Starmer now has the votes. You know, Keir Starmer has the votes. Now he needs to get the people. And I'm like, that's not how that works. You know what I mean? You're not meant to get elected and then be like, ooh, please like me. But it's wild. There are so many things that have happened in this election that are unexpected. I mean, apparently they've just scrapped the Rwanda policy. Like tonight, they've announced, right, it's fucking dead. You're not doing it. Which again, you're going to have to hand it to them on certain marginal cases here where they do things right, but it's going to be limited. But given the whole justification for the Keir Starmer project was that 2019 election was the worst defeat since 1935. It was the most terrible thing to ever happen to the Labour Party. The party must simply must head towards the centre, adopt right-wing rhetoric on immigration, accept the post-2010 austerity consensus on how we fund things, the use of privatisation, because that is the only way to win. It's the only way to get people and voters to trust us again, to get our voting numbers back up to where they should be, which is why in the election yesterday, Labour increased its percentage of the vote by 1.6% to 33.8% in total. But because turnout was down by 7.4%, that means they actually got around 500,000 fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn did in 2019. And it gets worse because 2019 was the lowest Corbyn scored. They are 3 million votes down on 2017. Those votes have gone elsewhere or they are not voting at all. And while that is not a problem right now, that is going to be a problem in a little while because of how the vote split. It's not that Labour won. Labour just stayed in place. They did not move while everyone else around them ate shit. Apart from Ed Davey, who went bungee jumping and had a great time and got the highest Lib Dem vote, like Lib Dem number of MPs ever.
Yeah, we were sort of joking about that before the podcast started, that when the two major parties are sort of completely shitting the bed, the best thing you can do as a minor party is nothing. Is just quietly sit there while they everyone increasingly starts to hate them, and you can just be the third checkbox on the ballot.
John, correct me if I'm wrong. Also, Labour's share of the vote in England and Wales actually declined, right? And it's only it only saw that 1.6% increase because of 1.6 point increase because the SNP collapsed. Right. Pretty
much, yeah. I mean, there's a great set of stats which say the collapse in the collapse in the Labour vote in Scotland happened in 2015, following the failed independence referendum because of how the UK, the Westminster Labour Party and the Tory Party promised the Scottish people that if they didn't vote for a referendum, they would definitely get lots of expanded devolution powers, and then immediately revoked it once the result came through. And that meant that in 2015, the SNP won 95% of seats in Scotland. And it's been that way. Like, even in 2019, they won 81% of seats. And Labour was down with almost nothing. But in this election, they've now got 69% of seats in Scotland again, which is still not where they were in 2010 by like 1%. But by regaining Scotland, that's where their vote is. Yeah, in Wales, they were down. In the UK, they were down. They got fewer votes because they've spent the last 4 years telling everyone on the left of the party to get fucked. And, you know, it's the kind of vaguely Mandelsonian thing of, well, who else are they going to vote for? And it turns out the Greens, it turns out the Liberal Democrats, it turns out in some wonderful, wonderful results, independents winning in Blackburn and Leicester South and Islington North.
That's a familiar name.
And Birmingham Perry Barr as well. There are 4 or 5 independents who won in this election because they were very much not Labour candidates. They were running against Labour candidates. Most of them were running on a very strict pro-Palestinian platform. And pause for concern here. How Labour respond to having been rejected by the Muslim community may be very bad because this party do not understand how to encourage people to vote for them. They're only good at telling people to fuck off. And there has already been some rumblings from certain Telegraph leader writers and stuff about, how can it be if our immigration policy grants citizenship to people like this who can, affect our democracy because they disagree with one bit of our foreign policy? And I'm just like, cool. So we're going to talk about the enemy within, are we?
Yeah, I mean, you can see that happening in Australia as well. They're sort of turning on MPs that have any sort of semblance of compassion for what's happening in Palestine, and it's
incredibly nastily over there.
Oh yeah, and again, it's people who ostensibly masquerade as centre left, who are coming out of the woodwork as just these like virulent racists,
like Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, which
just yesterday.
Yep. Also meeting with a very prominent Ukrainian neo-Nazi as well, and praising him and saying how sad it was that he passed away, which was an unusual choice from him, but I guess increasingly not that unusual that he's doing things like that.
Yeah, I think we are likely to see some of that happen in the UK as well. Yeah. But you always hope not. Like there's a stronger Muslim community in the UK, and it's a large part of the party. And there are a lot of MPs who were running and for Labour on pro-Palestine platforms, who are trying to fight within the party, who did quite well, who got returned under a Labour banner. So you do hope it won't quite get like that. But they've just got some really nasty people at the top of the Labour Party at the moment. You never know what they're going to do.
And this is just the Labour Party, because what we haven't talked about is Nigel Farage, who decided just after the election was called, having said, no, I'm busy getting Trump elected, he looked at how badly the Conservatives were doing and said, oh shit, this is my chance. Now, they've won 5 seats, okay? And some of them on decentish majorities because the thing about this election is that there is no one in Britain, in Parliament, who has more than a 25,000 seat majority, 25,000 vote majority anymore. There is no one who has more than that. So everyone is like, most people are in the low thousands, below 10,000, which means that the old days where you'd have these completely safe seats is gone. Now, how much of that is down to the boundary review they did because of the census, because they managed to like even it all out, but some of it is that this was, in some cases, most of these results were close 3-way results, and it was Lib Dem, Tory, Reform, Labour, Reform, Lib Dem, Labour, Reform, Tory. The Reform Party came second in a lot of places across the country. Some of them were Conservative seats. Some of them were Labour seats, including like the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. Reform came second in her constituency, which means that they are going to target that next time. And, people are saying, oh, well, it's only 5 seats. And it's like, yeah, it's only 5 seats now, but given that Reform are basically a more extreme version of the Tories, and Suella Braverman, who will go for the leadership, has said that she would look at bringing them kind of in-house or coming to some kind of agreement. The majority of the seats that Labour won, if you add up the Reform and the Tory vote, they lose those seats. So this victory is founded on sand. It's not a landslide, it's a tidal victory, kind of washed in, washed out. If anything, you know what's exactly like? It's exactly like Boris Johnson's win in 2019, which was also massively influenced by Nigel Farage. Because in 2019, he had the Brexit Party. The Brexit Party did not stand Brexit Party candidates against MPs in whichever party that they viewed were pro-Brexit enough. Didn't matter if they were Conservative or Labour. But what that did was you had a lot of Labour MPs who were towing the line. Brexit Party came in, split the Labour vote, and the Tories got in, because those were communities that would never vote Tory but could vote for the Brexit Party because they wanted to get Brexit done. So this is now 2 elections in a row. Nigel Farage has managed a third party to split the vote, first in favour of the incumbent and second to oppose the incumbent, except this time it wasn't tactical. This time he just ran things everywhere and actually got seats. That is something to be extremely worried about if you are in British politics, because they're not going away now. You know, they have got a foothold in Parliament. They will get airtime. Not that he didn't get enough airtime anyway. But this Labour Party has spent 4 years saying to the left, we don't need you. But when some of those voters then go back to the Conservative Party, because they did peel some off, or if Reform and the Conservative work together, the huge majority that we can see, this biggest majority since Blair, will wash away at the next election. And that's why you'll see some Labour people, especially a lot of their supporters in the media, getting extremely tetchy when people are pointing out, you lost 500,000 votes. This is the lowest percentage for a majority in Parliament ever, because they've got, what was it, 33.8%, which is about 10% down on where the polls said they were, and they're only about 10% ahead of the Conservatives. This is a victory. They're going to be able to do what they want for 4 years, but what happens after that?
What if I was to scream down my microphone or on social media about, they won though, and that's what really counts?
Well, they're obviously the most qualified candidate to, wait, are we talking about Britain or are we talking about the US? They're the most candidate in history.
That also assumes that, we haven't talked about the potential for the Labour government to implement the kind of policies that could be the exact ideal breeding ground for support for hard right parties. So, I mean, what is Starmer pledging to do now that he finally has the office of Prime Minister?
Professional, competent managerialism. No real extra money. We're not going to raise taxes anywhere. There's not going to be any additional money. Rachel Reeves, the first female chancellor in British history, congratulations, girl, we all support you, said today, well, there's not a whole lot of money available.
Oh, so they want fascism. They want fascism in the UK. I get it.
One of her first statements to the media was, well, there's not a whole lot of money available, and you're going to have to understand that. So it's 2010 all over again. I did read a tweet earlier who was just like, for those who've really enjoyed the UK's 2024 election, they're screening a special preview of the 2029 election in France on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, right? Like, it's very obvious that that's kind of the Macronist track, right?
Well, I mean, they've had that exact situation where Mélenchon has agreed to pull candidates from areas where they came third place, so that people will then switch their hard left vote to the sort of supposedly centre left vote of Macron. But then when he was asked the same question, he said, "Nah, we'll probably stay in it." So he's not interested in helping to hold off Le Pen. He doesn't want to hold off this like extremist, overtly fascist faction that's sort of ascendant in France right now. When he could, he has the power to stop it. It is Macron at this point who gets to decide where this goes. But it seems like he's more interested in just letting them go crazy than any possibility of letting Mélenchon and the left win, which is nuts.
The total number actually was like 130 left candidates stood down and about 82 of like the Macronists.
Yeah, but they didn't make it a policy thing, so that was a conscience choice by the Macronists. And so obviously there's people within his faction that are sort of better people than he is, but when they were asked, would you make this the policy like they have done, would you reciprocate that thing, he was like, we don't want to commit to anything, which is not.
It kind of feels like the UK future is like a combination of what we're seeing in France and what's happened in New Zealand, where you had a great historic majority in Parliament. Nothing at all was done with it. It was just kind of, let's just maintain the status quo. Everything kind of went to a slow decline, and then they got thrown out afterwards. But then it sounds like, I mean, it's much worse because Starmer's coming in with, unlike Ardern, Starmer is not well liked. I think actually he is he's like the most disliked leader in the last some number of years, more disliked than Corbyn, which is kind of, incredibly impressive, given that Starmer did not have any kind of character assassination campaign against him. But also, I mean, the national mood is different from when Ardern came to power in New Zealand. And I mean, the UK, it's pretty dismal. And then also, I mean, from what I understand, Starmer is also going to, he's promised to make, like $8 billion worth of cuts. So it's like on top of a really horrible national mood, they're going to, and beyond just kind of not doing anything, they're actually going to actively make things worse and make people even further embittered against the British political establishment.
I mean, look, the Tories have done austerity for the last 20 years. They must have figured something out that we don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe the British public like being beaten.
It's Starmer's turn to tread on the feet and hands of the working class.
Yeah.
Would you like to know how popular Keir Starmer was? This is from June 2024, but it's back then he had 34% favourable, 41% unfavourable.
I mean, it's like watching.
He was less popular than Larry the cat, the cat who lives in Downing Street.
I don't know, but Larry the cat is a world beater. It's like, that's
maybe
not
if
fair comparison.
did people understand that he really liked football though? Because maybe
he does.
Yeah,
it's very funny that like people kind of didn't work on the electorate because he likes football in a way that is extremely dorky and lame. Like he goes and he sits inside the like Ponzi box where they wear shirts and ties, and he's just not interested in football in a way that any British person can relate to. Like he's just like, oh yes, I like to go watch a game of football. Of course.
No, you made him sound far too charismatic with that voice.
That's the thing, though. It's like, you know, they did this gamble of like, let's really play up how much he likes football, and then they were like, he went full Mr. Burns, like just trying to be like the relatable guy, but is just down there being this weird rich creep. Oh man, embarrassing, profoundly embarrassing. And that's kind of the one word I would use to sum up his entire political arc.
I enjoyed when he got asked about how they were like rebuilding the England team, I think it was, and then his response was like, yeah, they're doing a lot of good things. They're rebuilding a side. And he's like, well, so it's like the Hillary thing. It's like, we're going to beat ISIS by destroying ISIS. It's like, you just restated the question.
But the thing is, like, what has Labour had to do, right? They've been given a free run into this election by the media. The Sun came out and supported Starmer, and Starmer embraced them. This is like, I don't know, is there an analogy that we can use for our New Zealand listeners and people kind of like of this, John? Like,
it's like if the platform endorsed the Greens.
Yeah.
Possibly.
But with history. With like so much history.
If Heather du Plessis-Allen came out tomorrow and said, you know what, those chaps in the Labour Party, they've got the right idea about tax and spend. You know, it's kind of that, you know, that it's all bullshit, but it's going to happen anyway. It's like, if you get endorsed by the Sun, then you are doing something wrong. But the way that he, at a rally in Scotland as well, who also hate the fucking Sun, said, it just shows that we've transformed this party back into the party of working people. And I'm like, yeah, the editor of a Murdoch paper supports you. That's a real working human being right there. Like, there are so many, it's not that Labour haven't done, well, Labour have done quite a few things wrong, but it's that they were like, well, if no one yells at us enough, we'll get to win because everyone else has fucked it up. And again, when the election started, they were 20 points ahead and they won by 10. You know, they were predicting wipeouts that have never been seen before, and that didn't happen.
Imagine dropping a 10-point lead.
If Nigel Farage had not taken over the Reform Party, and it was Richard Tice, who is far less capable as a communicator and, kind of beloved, this majority starts looking a bit shakier. Things start to get a little bit more shaky. And we're talking about like Labour and how bad things are, but I think we should take time to celebrate some of the absolutely fucking hilarious bits of this election.
And that's what I want to get into.
Yeah, let's get into the good stuff. Should we start in Bristol with Thangnam Debonair?
Bye,
Thangnam. Oh no, it turns out being a transphobe in a city that is quite left-wing doesn't work out well for you. She got whooped by the Greens. There is a 1-second video out there on Twitter that someone took of her with all of her people clapping the winning Green candidate, and she stood there radiating disgust. It is perfect. She was a horrible MP. She was massively entitled, and she fucking deserved it. Also, good for Jonathan Ashworth in Leicester South, who got whooped by a pro-Gaza candidate. I think Leicester North as well let a Tory in because Claudia Webb got convicted of harassment, and she did it. Let's be fair. The Labour Party expelled her, but she had a sentence reduced, and because it wasn't custodial, she couldn't be recalled. So she stood in the seat against the Labour candidate. And the difference between the Labour candidate and the Tory candidate was the vote she got. So again, forensic. Faiza Shaheen in Chingford and Wood Green.
This one was wild.
Deselected as the election was called. Like, she was out campaigning when she got told, "You're no longer got access to the system. We're going to change you for another candidate."
Thanks for joining us, Ollie.
Cheers, Ollie.
Go.
Always a pleasure.
They brought a candidate in from Brent, which is the opposite end of London, to be the candidate. So Pfizer went, "Fuck it, I'm going to stand anyway." She got 12.4 thousand votes. Labour got 12.5 thousand votes. Ian Duncan Smith, the architect of the punishing benefits regime, got 17,000 votes. And when asked about it, he goes, "Well, no, I don't think Pfizer Shaheen helped me win. Like, I obviously won because I'm the winner of the seat." And it's like, Pfizer Shaheen went, "Well, that's what you fucking get. Like, I live here. I'm going to have to deal with this. That candidate's back off to wherever." And this has happened again and again. Like, Labour's own bullshit has caught up with them a little bit. Their own factionalism has caused them more trouble than they thought they would. When you look at a lot of the defeats that have happened, I mean, Blackburn, Birmingham, Perry Barr, and there's one other, and I can't remember where it is, where these independents have won.
You can't remember where it is?
Huh? Oh, no, I'm not talking about that one yet. I'm not talking about that one yet. Where these independents have won, it is areas with a high Muslim population where Labour's vote was up to 20% down in those areas it's areas with more than a 20% Muslim population. Labour's vote was down like 7 to 10 points. Bigger in areas where there was an independent candidate who just said, "You know what? Fuck it, you can't vote for people who support genocide." It's a strong argument. And, there is obviously some fun here. Goodbye, horrible transphobe Joanna Cherry, who was one of the few candidates endorsed by a certain wizard author at this election, and she got whooped in her seat. Miriam Cates, who believes in conversion therapy and is absolutely batshit insane, she got whooped as well. Penny Mordaunt in my hometown of Portsmouth, fuck off. Gillian Keegan, the education secretary who wanted to introduce a Section 28 style thing about the relationship, sexuality, and education curriculum, which sounds horribly familiar. She got fucked by the Lib Dems too. Liz Truss.
Oh my God.
On Brent Shapps, Johnny Mercenary Mercer, who defends people who do literal war crimes. He's also gone. Jacob Rees-Mogg has gone back to being a haunted child in Victorian paintings. Who else? Therese Coffey's fucking gone as well. She was terrible. And, all of these people have lost. Wes Streeting was 500 votes from losing.
I still think they should recount it.
It can't be recounted, but I went and had a look, actually. When he won the seat in 2015, he had a 500 vote majority. And then under Corbyn, it extended to 9,000 and then 5,000 in 2019. So actually what he's done in this election is regress to what he gets when it's allowed.
Wow. Corbyn should run his independent party against them.
Yeah. And not just Phillips.
Yeah,
Phillips as well, right?
He was so close to getting done by George Galloway's Workers' Party. Oh, yes. Also, George Galloway, eat shit, motherfucker. George Galloway got whooped in Rochdale. Unfortunately, he got replaced by former Guardian and Times journalist Paul Waugh, who is a very weird man. He's like the slightly more acceptable Paul Mason. He's like
another loser of this election.
Still better than a bigot that cosplays as a leftist, honestly.
Well, speaking of Paul Mason, he did actually campaign during this election. He campaigned in Islington North.
Incredible, eh?
Along with Harriet Harman, Neil Kinnock, Peter Mandelson, Tom Watson of Fuck You Forever, you scumbag.
Oh, I didn't realize Watson had been dragged out to campaign against him.
Watson was dragged away from his terrible writing to run. They were all campaigning in Islington North because the Labour candidate there, who runs a private healthcare company, was up against this young, independent, not been seen before. His name was Jeremy Bernard Corbyn, who decided to run as the election was called, like about 4 or 5 weeks ago. and got a 7,000 vote majority, despite the entire establishment saying, no, Labour are going to win this one. He can't win because he just doesn't have the organisation. He's not good enough to do it.
It was crazy just to see the way that it was pitched in the media consistently, as Labour are going to win this. Labour have the numbers. Up until like polls closed, about 2 hours after that, they're saying, "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn might win with a narrow 1,500 majority," and then just fucking blew them out.
Just absolutely
There's
whooped them.
so few instances of justice in this world, and certainly in politics, even less. And to see Corbyn, I mean, after the just vicious, scurrilous character assassination campaign against him, the defamation campaign, it just lasted years, and then the deselection, and and then this was their final attempt to just completely destroy his political career.
I think
and
illegal deselection, right? Like that's still.
He's not fighting it.
whether it's illegal or not, but it was. I mean, of course, it was bullshit. I mean, it was done as part of this factional war that Starmer was running, but not that was the only reason for it. But I mean, I was prepared for him to lose, and I have no doubt that if he had, he would have continued to have a long and important career and presence in UK politics, maybe not in Parliament.
And in the heads of his detractors.
Well, definitely that. But I mean, he would have been continued to be an important figure in UK politics, and I think for left-wing politics globally. But the fact that he was able to beat all these people, the fact that he was able to shove it in their face, that they couldn't actually get rid of him because he was just too beloved. He was actually too good of a politician, too good of a public servant for the people that he represented, is just beautiful. And it was wonderful to watch all these reactions, from people who seemed like they had been cast into a deep depression by his victory. It's I know he didn't become prime minister, and there are some grim days ahead for the UK. But I think we have to occasionally feed ourselves some good news, some optimism, and this is just an unambiguous bit of justice and goodness in this otherwise dark world.
It's a fuck you to the Labour establishment. I mean,
absolutely.
Like, fun little stats, like Jeremy Corbyn got 24,120 votes. Keir Starmer got 18,884. More people literally voted for Jeremy Corbyn in this election than voted for Keir Starmer. And that was, let me just check, that wasn't the same in 2019. In 2019, Starmer got 34,000. Starmer got 36,000 votes, and this time he got 18. He halved the number of votes he got, and it's
not well liked.
I mean, I'm going to be honest here. Like, there is an element of fucking cope, isn't there, from us looking at this victory and going, well, it's on shaky grounds, and some of that is backed up by the evidence. But even before the result, everyone was just like, well, this Labour Party aren't going to do as well as 2017. They're not going to hit that 40%.
Yeah.
And it was very much like Keir Starmer may have reformed the party, but he literally cannot get enough people to vote for him because he's so dislikable. And I think everyone was kind of hanging on that because we'd all kind of internalized a little bit. The 2019 was pretty fucking bad in terms of, the result and what it meant for the Corbyn project and what it meant for Britain as a whole because of everything that happened after that. The fact that Labour got fewer votes this time than 2019, the fact that for all of the purges and the factionalism and the bullshit and the supporting the genocide and all of this, they only managed to get 1.5 or 1.6% more of the vote, and turnout was massively down, is much more of something you can point at and tangibly say, the Starmer project has won, but at what cost? You've got a majority. It's like Ben Franklin after they did the Declaration of Independence. The lady says to him, "Oh, have we got a republic or a monarchy?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a republic if you can keep it." Starmer's got a majority if he can keep it, and I don't think he can. He's not good enough.
Well, also you said he only won that despite all these things, but I think there's an argument to be made that he also Labour did so dreadfully ultimately because of these things. I mean, there is I think there certainly Starmer's bet was I can be the most transparently cynical politician in the world. I can just brazenly lie. I can go back on every single thing I told people I was going to do and that I stood for and just be a complete fraud. And it doesn't matter. Nothing matters because, people are stupid. The public doesn't care. No one pays attention. And so I can get away with it. And I think that clearly has been proven wrong. I mean, by his by his disapproval ratings alone, clearly this guy who has not had, by any measure, any kind of like particularly scrutinizing media coverage, yet has ended up so disliked. And I think it's because people have seen the mini videos, and people who were paying attention during 2019, did remember that he said he was going to run on the Corbyn platform, and he just bit by bit went back on that. I think all that took a toll. It's like, oh yeah, you're just another lying, cynical, power hungry politician. They won't learn it, but to me, there is a lesson here that there actually is a limit to how much you can sort of take the public for a ride as a politician.
I think they have to learn it, and I think part of the problem has been that not only is Starmer like this as a politician, but he gave unprecedented power to this core group of right-wing Labourites to just run rampant through the party, deselecting, dropping candidates in like Luke Ahurst, just the nastiest pieces of shit that Labour could possibly dredge up, like overriding entire branches to deselect candidates, defunding people. There's been some shocking stories come out about Clacton, where Nigel Farage ran, for example. And the young candidate that Labour had there was told he had to stop campaigning. And I think even while they are cheering themselves on, like, yeah, we won, we got the vote, so nothing else matters, means justifies the ends, that data is very, very clear. They still have to look at that and say, okay, like, we've got 4 years to fucking do something. Like, I think they still want to win. I am hopeful that they are forced into some kind of action. But I'm also hopeful that the left, rather than, because there's still a significant, it's not like Labour here in New Zealand. There's a much longer history of the Labour Party in the UK, and there are still, I would say, a lot of good people in there. As much as they try to deselect a whole bunch of MPs like Corbyn. They try to get Diane Abbott coming into the election as well, and they just couldn't.
Auntie Diane once again winning, reduced majority, but still like one of the biggest for Labour.
Yeah,
like you can't beat Diane Abbott.
No.
On any day, which is great.
And those people are still in the Labour Party, and they know as well. And they're looking at these independent candidates. They're looking at candidates like Faza Shaheen, and they're saying, okay, what can we do to make this work? Because everything that we're saying here is this is easy analysis. Like, we're not saying anything particularly special around like the comparisons to Macron, right? And what's happening in France now. Like everyone knows that Reform getting seats here and bringing even more bigotry onto the national stage of UK politics is a bad thing. I think we're going to potentially, under a Labour Party where they're not desperately trying to do Blair, desperately tapping their horrible ancient resources and curses like Peter Mandelson, are forced into a situation where they can say, okay, Tories are out. Fantastic. What does the future look like? And start fighting back against what's been happening within the Labour Party itself. And it really is an existential fight that they'll be taking on now. And I really hope it gives them impetus.
There's also the other side of this, which is, as we said, they've been like the Starmer's Labour have been playing politics on easy mode for the last 4 years.
Yeah, rare for a Labour Party. But it's because they went Tory.
Yeah, because they've not been effectively scrutinised by the press about things that they should have been. Whereas the Tories, like in say since Boris Johnson stepped down, since there is a habit in UK journalists, which is called noticing, where they don't notice things for an immensely long amount of time. Like Boris Johnson and Partygate, they knew about those parties in 2020, but they became weaponized in the media in late 2021.
Yeah.
And that kind of noticing, what we are now is that the right-wing press have said, okay, yeah, Labour, it's your turn. And Labour have gone, cool, so we're friends, right? Right? And what they're going to find is that maybe the right-wing press are going to notice that doing austerity politics is bad, actually, and you should do something different.
They might notice that Nigel Farage is an MP now.
Yeah, and they'll give him space and time, and whoever takes over the Tory party is going to get the biggest buff of all time because, there's a range of people it could be. I really hope it's not Kemi Badenoch because she's genuinely a dangerous person.
Well, Braverman as well, right?
Yeah, Badenoch's only saving grace is that she fucking hates the Reform Party. But that's not difficult. She hates everyone. It's great. She hates trans people most of all, though, which is annoying. And David Tennant, weird woman. But Starmer is now going to get criticized for stuff that he didn't before. He is going to be managing a large party of candidates that he's never had to deal with that before. The NEC aren't going to be able to deselect sitting MPs as easily anymore. It's kind of, the Tories, they've kind of, the media have said to the Tories, okay, you guys fuck off, you're done for now. Go and, go to the bench, go and recharge, have a couple of oranges, and we'll put these guys in. But Labour have got there and they're like, yeah, we're going to be calm and reasonable and managerial, and we're gonna make things better.
And the right wingers didn't finish the job they wanted to do before getting into Parliament.
The argument Labour made in 2019 when they lost, the argument that Starmer made was that we got too left wing, and that's why voters abandoned us. Andrea Leadsom, former Tory MP, made the argument that the Conservatives lost votes at this election because they were too left wing. And both of them, think about what I said earlier.
Just say it out loud. Just say it out loud.
No, think about what I said earlier. Both of those two election losses were instrumental. The person instrumental in it was Nigel Farage by pulling both parties. He's working on a project to pull everything right, and he's winning because fucking morons are going, oh, well, we lost. We must have been too left wing. We'll go more towards the centre. And now the right wing have lost, and they're going, well, we must be too left wing, so we must be going a bit more further right.
Morons are just fascists, right? Like people who want this shit.
These people are not stupid, though. I call them morons, but they're not. They're very intelligent. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's going to be very bad.
Starmer as well is a guy who, when he has faced any sort of media pressure, he's not good at dealing with it. During the campaign in the few
ears go really red when he gets annoyed, and he can't hide his disgust at being criticized.
Yeah, it becomes a malfunctioning robot and just kind of repeats the talking point that he was obviously fed and told, just say this, and then reporters who are stupid go, hold on, you're not answering the question, you're just basically saying the same exact thing again and again and again. And then now, he's going to have to deal with that constantly because he's the prime minister.
Political leader who is personally unpopular struggles to talk to the media or get his messaging across, being shielded from the public by his courtiers and viziers. No, wait, is this the same? Is this what we started with again? It is.
Watching events right now playing out in the United States and the UK. What strikes me to bring it back to a more local focus is, both of these countries are melting down at the exact time that New Zealand, our country, is decided to more firmly kind of go into the Atlanticist camp. And just the sheer irrationality and nonsensicalness of this, that we would look at what is going on. In the US alone, you have one side that is campaigning on a project of state terror, and the other side is in this state of paralysis because its senile president is being shielded by a tiny cabal of random people and family members, and they can't get rid of him even though they know he's a disaster. Very unstable, just as a situation in the UK is unstable. And for whatever reason, we're looking at that and we're going, we want to be on these guys' side.
It's wild.
This will work out well.
And you've still got a whole bunch of people here who are like politics watchers, maybe more on the liberal side. I don't necessarily use that as a derogatory term here, who still believe that stuff like Russiagate or that Corbyn being like aligned with Putin are real things. They think that Starmer and Biden are absolutely the good guys, and that horseshoe theory exists, and that politicians like Sanders and Corbyn are like inside jobs. We've got this huge, we've got a significant, I shouldn't say huge, significant group of people here in the progressive space who still believe those things and have never updated their internal logic on it. They just ate that Western media from the imperial call wholesale and have never adjusted their beliefs. And so they see Starmer getting in, they see like this fight for democracy in the US, and they know who they're standing with. And they believe that we need to be on the side of the West because what's the other option anyway?
The side currently committing genocide, the thing that fascists are the ones who typically do. Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that looking at this election result in the UK, that New Zealand Labour is going to take all the wrong lessons from it and go.
I'm really worried about it.
Yeah. We just have to wait for the for National to collapse in the same way that the Tories have, and then we just kind of don't do anything. We'll just inherit power again.
Oh no! Don't do anything. We have to go anti-trans.
Right.
Guys. Are you telling me that Rob Salmond is going to look at those election results and misinterpret them? Is that honestly what you were saying? Are you saying that the big brains at the Labour Party in New Zealand are going to look at those results and go, red team win, good, let's go? Like, this is shocking to me. I mean, Labour obviously have, this century have got back into power by taking a very careful approach of having a massively unpopular leader until about 5 weeks out from the election and then swapping for someone who's popular. You're telling me they're not going to try that again? I mean, that's literally the only way they've got elected from opposition this century. But they're not. I mean, you've got to hope that our actual Labour Party here is a little bit less insane.
I think the Labour Party, just as like a group, is less insane just because of some of the insanity of the right-wing Labourites in the UK. Mm-hmm. But as I was saying before, we do not have that same history. We no longer really have the same links to unions here because the unions don't really have the same links to workers. And I just don't think they have the capability more than anything else. I don't think whoever the Labour leadership and caucus listen to in terms of strategy and whatever their fucking polling team does know what they're doing. We've seen them do just absolutely wild stuff. And as we've said throughout this podcast, the data is there for UK Labour to be looking at that and going, oh shit, that's there for anyone to look at. Like any Labour Party can look at that because this is a global trend. This is something that people go, oh wow, okay. Left-wing progressive independents with a strong anti-genocide stance are getting elected against both major parties. Maybe we should have a think about that. But they're liable to do the opposite and think, okay, wait, how can we get the media on side? How can we make sure that everyone else just aligns with us randomly, but without 14 years of Tory rule really making things decrepit in the UK?
I think there's also a thing here where we do have the advantage that we do have a proportional representation voting system. And we kind of skipped over. If we had first past the post in this country, New Zealand First would probably be the right wing of the Labour Party, or at least some of them would be. You know what I mean? The Greens would probably be part of the left wing of the Labour Party. You know what I mean? Because it would just be there's only two real options here for who's going to win. So it's going to be like this team or this team. And the PR, like the first past the post results in the UK were kind of insane in that Labour get like 30-something% of the vote and get 400 and something seats. The Tories get like 20-something and get like 120. Reform got 12% of the vote Oh no, Reform got 14% and got 5 seats, and the Lib Dems got less than them, but got like 71 seats. And it's like this, just the way that the votes stack up and the way it works. I mean, if you look at Wales as well, there are no Conservatives in Wales anymore, but they didn't do that badly in the number of votes overall. It's just that in every seat, they just didn't get enough anywhere. And that, it has been a funny thing to look at it and go, wow, first past the post really does entrench a kind of psychosis among political parties that they can't understand. That's why they talk about a landslide here and they don't want to look at the numbers. Ironically, one political party leader who has noticed that the numbers are wrong and are not representative is Nigel Farage, who has said that him and the Reform Party will work with anyone to implement a proportional voting system in the UK. And you just go, oh no, because technically he ain't wrong that it's a fucked up system.
Yeah, they're good at doing that kind of thing. I mean, Galloway with the Workers' Party was like trying to ride on Palestine, right?
Yeah.
These people are very good at finding what the public want and offering a carrot.
The UK public do not want proportional representation. We did a referendum about this back in like 2011 or 2012, and everyone was just like, this sucks shit. But that was mostly because the Lib Dems wanted it back then, and everyone hated them then.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this election may prompt that, but it's clever politics from Farage, I hate to say, because he's going, look at this obvious thing, how I've got this many votes. I've got this percentage of the vote, but I've only got this many seats. That's not fair. You, the people, voted for us, but you're not getting your voices heard. And again, it's coming from the far right, but he's not wrong in terms of like what representative democracy should operate like. And by saying I'll work with anyone, that's saying to your Lib Dems and your kind of left-wing wets, like your Greens as well in the UK, like, are you serious about this? Because if you are, we can come to an arrangement, like fucking horseshoe theory, because both major parties will not want a bar of it. Which is gonna, again, there's a whole other fight there that could be set up over the next 4 years that Britain is going to continue to be incredibly normal about. However, the most important thing is that Kelly Jane Keane Minshall got 157 votes in total in Bristol Central and 8 complete shit and lost her deposit. Her women's party got about 5,000 votes in total in the whole of the UK for their 16 candidates. And it turns out that transphobia is not very popular. So I think I'm going to leave it there for today. Hey,
fantastic. Any final words, Branko?
I mean, I think I'll just say that we at least have the benefit of being able to see this stuff happening and kind of react to it. But that's also been true since 2016, and that has not necessarily influenced our politicians here. But hopefully somebody's paying attention, because we don't have to go down this disastrous road that the US and the UK have gone down.
Party strategists, call me.
As always, we are solving the world's problems.
Yeah. We know what we're on about. We get things right.
We are the only podcast that has the lathe of history on staff.
I hate it, and I hate it. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you for coming and sharing your UK knowledge. Thank you, Branko, joining us from the United States to do that shit. And thank you, Ollie, who has already left, for offering the New Zealand perspective. Thank you to our audience. Cheers for tuning in again for the slow march of history. We'll be back midweek or next weekend with current events. Share, like, subscribe, leave us a review. We love those reviews. Give us a little bump in the numbers. Get us in front of people. Only far left, independent politics media doing a podcast or something. But we're also very right about things a lot of the time. You're getting an early edition to do a throwback to some very odd television. We'll catch you next time.
If artificers are, then I'm living a pointless life, but learning all your lessons. Fucking politics, there's no distinction. The road's upon now. It's paved with good intentions, and I'll admit that I'm at a loss for what to say when they quote this as a cost we ought to stay. 'Cause I live amongst the people every day. This vindictive, forgetful fucking race.